the World Cup's had some really good games in the round of 32, and well, these next three that we've seen have been absolutely fantastic again. Some very, very eventful games. And starting with Spain's convincing win over Austria. Spain looking better by the game. They've not even conceded a goal so far in this tournament. The 0-0 against Cape Verde, is not looking too bad now. Cape Verde have turned out to be a really decent side. Eased past Saudi Arabia, beat Uruguay 1-0 as well. And going into this game, convincing win over Austria, who are a decent side. And I know haven't, it's been a while since they've had success at this stage of the World Cup. They're certainly, a team that can cause problems. And on their day, if they was playing someone else that wasn't like quite as good as Spain, they might have had an upset in them. But I think there's always going to struggle for chances against Spain. I think they get into a lot of good areas, but Arnautovic is a lot older now, can't play every game. He's still clinical if it's in the right place for him. And when he took the penalty earlier in the tournament, he scored. But he's because of his age, he's I think he's 37. He can't play at the same level he used to. It's they get into a lot of good areas, but I think they lack the out-and-out goal scorer. The start for the game, obviously Spain on top for a while. Austria, few sort of chances early on, but Spain really were dominating, and they do get themselves in front. Marc Cucurella does score, but controversially the goals chalks off that rule again that we've seen a lot over this tournament that I think people are starting to get frustrated with. I think people are starting to get frustrated with a lot of the officiating in the tournament now. There is some inconsistency emerging now. I think this rule in particular is really frustrating for a lot of people, and that goal in the end, Spain went on a 1-3-0, didn't have much of an effect, but in some games, if that was in a different game, it could have been very, very different. Some contact on the keeper before Cucurella runs in for the shot. Because of that, the goal chalks off, but it doesn't take long for Spain to respond again. Zerbal, again, always clinical for Spain, in the right place at the right time to slot it home. So put 1-0 up, and you're going into the break. Certainly a dominant Spain performance, and that theme continued in the second half. It was very much Spain on top, and they do get the second. Pedro Porro gets on the score sheet, and from there, Spain, they very much dominated this game. They had the ball most of the game. Austria, they did. The best chance they created was probably right at the start of the second half, and did get into some good areas. I think they defended. There's some good defensive moments as well. Good clearance of Malaba, to stop it getting worse. Some good stuff like that. But overall, didn't really score the goals. They did. They could score the goals against Algeria and Jordan, but a similar thing happened against Argentina. They were completely outplayed as well and really sort of struggled to create clear-cut chances. And I think the tournament, Austria, they can't. It's definitely not like a disastrous tournament. They've achieved what I think people would have expected them to achieve. They've gotten to the point people would have thought they would have got to. If they finished second in the group, which was what they were sort of expected to do on paper, they did that. Won the first game, drew with Algeria. They got second. That's what people would have expected of them. Then it was always clear that if they would probably face Spain if they finished second, because Spain would probably win the group. And then they did, and they went out against Spain. And I think that's what people thought, really. Was the performance underwhelming yesterday? Could we expect to see slightly more of them? Maybe, but Spain are seriously strong as well. They're one of the favourites still for the competition. I think alongside Argentina and France, they've not put a foot wrong so far, really. Especially when you think they've not conceded a goal so far. Those three at the moment, for sure, looking like the favourites. But Spain just, like I say, swept aside Austria yesterday. And, in the end, they do find the third goal as well. Zerbal again. They get through to the round of 16, and they're on a real run. They're going to take some beating this tournament still. Spain, anyone that predicted them to win at the start of the tournament, I still think that could be on, for sure. Austria just really had no answer to them. No shot on target for the game, very few shots. I think that tells the full story, really, when you look at Spain's domination, how much shots they had, how much the ball they had in attacking areas. Just dominating the ball overall, and just not, Austria not really getting much of a look in. So 3-0 win for Spain in the end as they progress. Now, Portugal and Croatia, what a game this was. This was always going to be a huge game. The winners facing the winners of the other games. So the winners, we knew at this point, would face Spain. Portugal, so much talk about them failing to top the group. Misfiring against Colombia and DR Congo, and then got against Uzbekistan. Were very convincing winners. Ronaldo with the 2 goals, very, very impressive to score in the World Cup with 41, regardless of opposition. But at that point, serious questions were being asked, especially with the fact that Ronaldo plays pretty much every minute of every game, and still, he's going to be there. He's captain, he's the main man, but he's well and truly past his best, and that's obvious. And going into this game, that was my biggest concern. That's been my biggest concern about Portugal, is I think and whether Martinez has got almost the authority to kind of to drop Ronaldo if necessary. You think the amount of athleticism they've got in the team, the wingers, how fast they are, and then you think particularly in the midfield, probably the best midfield. Well, it is the best midfield in the tournament on paper. No one could argue with that. Really decent defensively, very good goalkeeper, and you think Ronaldo, just not having his pace anymore, that could be the thing that holds him back. You think, defenders, just simply because they're younger and just playing at top level quicker, just able to barge him off the ball and keep him quiet in the games that we've seen on the build up to this tournament. He plays in all the qualifiers, and we did wonder what it would be like in this tournament. People thought he might have played his last tournament like a good 3-4 years ago, but coming into this, still leading the line. And you've got Gonzalo Ramos, who, okay, for PSG might not have quite reached the heights people expected, but a very, very good centre forwards. 13 years younger than Ronaldo, or something like that. At least I think might be more, 14 years younger or something like that. Sitting on the bench for a lot of the time, getting on in the games, but for a lot of the time, for the second half, but not really, not even ahead, not even sub for Ronaldo. Yes, he comes on for the someone else, but I was always a bit concerned with Portugal. They were sort of somewhat misfiring. It wasn't at the level they needed to be so far. They certainly knew they'd have to raise the game. Croatia was always going to be a tough game. Croatia have got, if the game went the distance, we know Portugal got the quality off the bench, the big squad. But we know Croatia are solid in all positions. They've got a good mix of youth and experience, I feel. They're good. Through the group stage, they won the games expected of them as well. Good against England in the first half, proving they could put goals past the top side. Then they beat Panama, and Ghana had to work for those wins. But 6 points from the group is what would have been expected for them. Still a top 10 ranked team in the world. We know on their day they could cause the biggest of teams' problems, and they're a big side themselves. So coming into this game with Portugal, it was going to be tight, and it was very tight to start with. Very, very. You can see what was at stake. One thing was for certain in this game: one of Modric and Ronaldo would play their last World Cup game. Last chance of both of them, and coming into the sort of second half, we knew Portugal in the first half sort of, on top, but not much in it. Croatia start that second half really well. And, it is, we do see, in the 50-minute mark, around the 50-minute mark, they do get themselves 1-0 up. Perisic, another player that's, veteran for Croatia, gets them in the lead. And big goal for Croatia, puts them 1-0 up. Pressure's really on Portugal now. Croatia get themselves in a really good position. And, all the spotlights on Ronaldo. Is this going to be his final World Cup game? Because it was announced after the game that this would be his last. He would retire from international football after this game. And Croatia 1-0 up, and Portugal try to force a way back into the game. They do get themselves a goal. Ronaldo, and then he's pulled back for offside. And then eventually they get the penalty. The corner comes in from Mendes, and then Leao is fouled. He sort of almost blocked the run, was kind of blocked, so it's held back, and then that is after being checked, given as a penalty. Ronaldo scores a penalty. As expected, you expect him to still score from the spot, and I think he did. I know he had the goal was offside, but I think you have to say he did somewhat step up. In those big moments. Well, how much you can keep doing this? The level's only going to get harder. They're getting away with it a bit at the moment with him, but they scrape through again in the end of this game. But it was so tight, such a great game, and I think the key is Portugal found a way. Again, that's what I said about England the other day. Tournament football is about finding a way. You've got to find a way to win. But one thing's for certain: when Portugal play Spain, they're going to need by far the best performance so far, and they're going to need to raise the game. They did beat them in that Nations League last year on penalties after a great game or two. So. Can they do it again? We will find out. But from there they did get themselves in front again. Croatia straight away, but then that's pulled back for offside as well. Then we see but Portugal they do keep pushing at this point, but at this point really the game Portugal were probably on top in terms of possession and chances in the first half slightly, but really at this point it's very even. This game's on a knife edge. It could go either way. It's 50-50 chances both ends, and it really looked like it could go either way one moment in it. And Portugal, as we sometimes see them do, did step up in the big moment. 95 minutes, we're in stoppage time now, and the ball comes in from Leao again, and then Ramos is able to get his head in it. Big moment for him. A statement goal from him as well. Should he be starting? Really, and then you can see after the equaliser how much it meant celebrations, but you can see the celebrations here. The place is going mad here. Portugal fans have wrapped the players all on the pitch celebrating, incredible scenes. And then the goal, that seems like it's put them through. But there's still more twists to come. There's been some late goals in this tournament. That wasn't even the latest goals. The major talking point in this game, Croatia, they do not give up. They refuse to go down without a fight, and unfortunately it went against them in the end. But they're able to force an equaliser. Grimaldo's the one who gets the final touch. But eventually, after a lengthy check, it's chalked off for offside in the at this point we're well over 100 minutes, 107 minutes, something like that. We're in the game. It's ridiculous. Like almost at like 20 minutes of stoppage time. There's so much time added on, and it's going mad. And the goal was chalked off controversially. It's a goal that will go down as a controversial one, like the other ones we've seen. Some of the other ones we've seen in this tournament, and this game could have had even more goals in as well. We see multiple goals disallowed. Yeah, goals disallowed at both ends. Croatia just denied a huge chance there to stay in the tournament, where it looked like they'd saved themselves. But Portugal, they did show a lot of fight in this game to be able to come back from behind, where the pressure was really on them. But they find a way through in the end. It's a crazy game, but Portugal ultimately win 2-1 against Croatia. They go through and they will now play Spain in the round of 16. What an incredible game that would be earlier on than what they would have met in the tournament if Portugal had won the group. Spain have been near, since the Cape Verde game, near perfect. No goals conceded. It's going to be a major challenge. We know the quality Portugal have got, and if it can all click on the day, what could happen. But the level needs to rise. But the important thing is they're through and they're still in this tournament, and that's the key in knockout football. But we've already seen the round of 16 taking shape, and it's going to be some incredible games. Later on, we see Switzerland take on Algeria. Switzerland, the team that would probably be the favourites for this game. I thought maybe Algeria would get a goal. I thought maybe they'd make it a bit closer, but I think Switzerland in the end were fairly strong, fairly convincing. Algeria maybe at the moments, but Switzerland in the end, was able to keep control of this. Early on, it's on the plate for Mbolo, and as he always does for Switzerland, finishes. There's moments where they push for the second in that first half, but then Algeria do create some chances as well. And I think Algeria, they do always, every game they've dominated the possession, they always dominate the ball, but it's only against a certain level of opposition they've been able to do something with it. They've not struggled to create the clear-cut chances in the games against the more quality sides. Against Austria, we really see what they can do in front of goal when it's more their sort of level, and against Jordan as well in that second half. But against Argentina and Switzerland, despite dominating the ball, have not been able to put that to full effect. And with Riyad Mahrez, another legend of the game, has now retired from international football after Algeria have been knocked out there. And then the Doy in that second half does get Switzerland's second goal. Algeria had multiple chances to clear, didn't, and Switzerland, from there, are able to keep control. Overall, stay fairly convincing in the end and keep them at arm's length. And see the game out. They try, there's some more chances. They try to find a way back into Algeria, and they're not really. The chances just weren't really there. Switzerland are able to see it out. Very, very convincing, very strong win, clean sheet. 2-0 win as well. Good in front of goal. In the big moments, they go through and they continue in this tournament. They're a very experienced side now. They're going to be a threat, as always, going on in this tournament, and maybe even more so than ever now. So that's the games we saw yesterday. Absolutely crazy game between Portugal and Croatia, and Spain very strong, very convincing. Switzerland looking very good themselves as well. Going to be some massive round of 16 games. There's still some very, very strong teams left in this tournament. I'm really looking forward, in particular, to Spain and Portugal. It's going to be a massive game. Still early on in the knockout stage of this competition. One of them is going to have to fall. So we'll see how that goes. But final three round of 32 games kick off tonight. That's going to be very, very interesting to see how that all plays out. But hopefully, so far there's been incredible games on each day. Belgium's come back, Brazil's come back. We've seen some, Paraguay and Morocco through on penalties. England coming back. Portugal last night. We've seen some incredible games, and I don't think this will be stopping. I think that theme will continue as we go deeper into this tournament.